Hello friends, welcome once again to Dr. Amdekar's Steer channel. I'm Dr. Anjali Gokarn. Today we will discuss sensory ataxia. Ataxia is a neurological sign characterized by the loss of coordinated voluntary muscle movements due to dysfunction in the neural circuit that regulate movement, balance and proprioception. Ataxia could be of three types: cerebellar ataxia, caused by lesions in the cerebellum; vestibular ataxia, caused by lesions in the inner ear or the vestibular pathway; and sensory ataxia, caused by loss of proprioception and vibration sensation due to lesions in the peripheral sensory nerves or the dorsal root ganglia or the dorsal columns. Today we will discuss sensory ataxia. After a clinical diagnosis of ataxia, we have to narrow down the diagnosis further with step-by-step investigations in a tiered approach. Step 1. The first line tests are done on every patient to rule out common and reversible causes. A complete blood count helps by screening for anemia and macrocytosis, which would indicate nutritional deficiencies like B12 or folate deficiency that can cause dorsal column damage. CBC can also pick up infections, hematological malignancies, or immune disorders that may be the underlying cause of ataxia. We can do a random blood sugar or HbA1c in sensory ataxia to screen for diabetes as a cause. Why? Because chronic hyperglycemia leads to diabetic peripheral neuropathy and dorsal column damage. Diabetes is also a common feature of Friedreich's ataxia. So, a random blood sugar and HbA1c helps identify a treatable and reversible cause and guides management. Thyroid stimulating hormone can also be a screening test, as hypothyroidism can cause neuropathy and ataxia. Liver function tests are done to detect alcoholic liver disease as well as non-alcoholic liver disease, which causes decreased absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, especially vitamin E, the deficiency of which also causes sensory ataxia. Kidney function tests need to be done as a baseline because before MRI, we want to know what are the kidney functions. Also, it is needed for monitoring the side effects of certain medications which may be used in the treatment. Vitamin B12 and folate levels are done, as deficiencies of both of these cause subacute combined degeneration. Vitamin E levels are done to detect its deficiency as part of A-beta lipoproteinemia. Some second-line tests are done based on clues from the clinical findings or the first-line tests. We do serum protein electrophoresis to look for an abnormal M protein spike. When present, this is a sign of myeloma, lymphoma, or other plasma cell disorders. This is confirmed with further tests. SLE, Sjogren's, and other autoimmune diseases also cause sensory ataxia because the immune system attacks the sensory nerves or the dorsal root ganglia. We can detect these with ESR, CRP, ANA, and ENA when there are clues besides ataxia, when there are joint pains, dry eyes, dry mouth, or a skin rash. HIV, VDRL, Lyme tests are all done to rule out these infections that can damage the sensory nerves and the dorsal columns. We check serum copper and serum ceruloplasmin. Low copper can cause a myelopathy and sensory ataxia that mimics B12 deficiency. Low serum ceruloplasmin and a confirmatory 24 hours urine copper will help rule out Wilson's disease. In younger patients, this is a differential diagnosis for sensory ataxia. We can check serum zinc levels. High levels are usually due to zinc supplements, denture creams, which causes copper deficiency leading to sensory ataxia. Genetic tests are indicated when ataxia starts early, there's a family history, or no acquired cause can be detected. In Friedreich's ataxia, genetic testing confirms the diagnosis by detecting a fault in the FXN gene on chromosome 9, which causes frataxin deficiency. For other sensory ataxias, we use a targeted gene panel which can identify hereditary sensory neuronopathies and ataxias. These tests help differentiate acquired versus inherited and guides prognosis. Step 3 is a neuro workup, which includes nerve conduction studies and electromyography. In sensory ataxia, the nerve conduction studies typically show reduced or absent sensory nerve action potentials with normal motor conduction. This reflects an axonal loss rather than demyelination. EMG is usually normal unless there is a coexisting motor nerve involvement, in which case it shows chronic neurogenic changes in the muscles. In cases where EMG and NCS both show motor plus sensory abnormalities, patients will have weakness and loss of balance. When MRI and CT scan are done, there are some typical patterns seen in some conditions like B12 deficiency, which causes subacute combined degeneration showing T2 hyperintensities. In cerebellar ataxia, there is cerebellar atrophy, multiple sclerosis, spine demyelinating lesions. In Friedreich's ataxia, brain MRI is often normal early on. Later, MRI typically shows atrophy of the spinal cord, especially in the cervical region, and atrophy of the cerebellum and the brainstem. We may also see T2 hyperintensities in the dorsal column and in the corticospinal tracts of the spinal cord. CT scans are less helpful but can pick up cerebellar atrophy or stroke. So, rule of the thumb is, if we have a normal MRI CT but an abnormal nerve conduction test, it's peripheral sensory ataxia. If we have an abnormal MRI and a normal nerve conduction, it's a central cause in the spinal cord or cerebellum. CSF studies are done if inflammatory or infective causes are suspected. In pure sensory neuronopathy and most metabolic or genetic causes, CSF is usually normal. CSF is abnormal when the cause is central or inflammatory. We may see high proteins, lymphocytic pleocytosis, or oligoclonal bands in conditions like chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, multiple sclerosis, or infections. So, CSF studies help to rule out central or inflammatory causes when MRI and NCV studies are not clear. Step 4 is organ-specific investigations. In Friedreich's ataxia, ECG and echocardiography are done to screen and monitor for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is a major cause of mortality in these patients. Management of sensory ataxia focuses on treating the underlying cause, improving safety, and maximizing function. Treating the underlying cause first. Sensory ataxia is only a symptom or sign, so we need to identify and manage the primary lesion in the peripheral nerves, dorsal root ganglia, or dorsal columns. Nutritional deficiencies like vitamin B12 or vitamin E deficiency should be corrected with supplementation to halt progression, and sometimes it allows partial recovery. Metabolic causes such as diabetes require good glycemic control to prevent further diabetic sensory neuropathy. Autoimmune diseases like Sjogren's disease, lupus, or paraneoplastic sensory neuronopathy are managed with immunosuppressants, IVIG, or treatment of the associated malignancy. Toxic causes including chemotherapy agents, alcohol, heavy metals require stopping the offending agent if possible. Infectious causes such as HIV, neurosyphilis, Lyme's disease should be treated with appropriate antimicrobials. Genetic causes like Friedreich's ataxia currently have no cure, but disease-modifying therapy such as omaveloxolone can be considered to slow progression. This drug is advised after the age of 16 years and is available only at some places. Rehabilitation is central because patients lack position sense and rely heavily on vision for balance. Physical therapy focuses on gait training, balance exercises, and proprioceptive training using visual and auditory cues to compensate for loss of sensation. Occupational therapy helps with adaptive strategies for activities of daily living, like using vision to guide hand movements. Assistive devices such as canes, walkers, ankle-foot orthotics, or weights improve stability and reduce falls. Home safety modifications are important, like using good lighting, removing rugs, using grab bars, and avoiding walking in the dark because symptoms worsen when eyes are closed. Pain management may be needed if there is associated neuropathic pain from the underlying neuropathy. Patient education about fall risk and energy conservation helps prevent injury. Prognosis depends on the reversibility. If the dorsal column or nerve damage is from a treatable cause, some function can recover. But if axonal loss is severe, the deficits are often permanent and management is only supportive. In conclusion, sensory ataxia is a sign of lesion in either the peripheral nerve, dorsal root ganglion, or the dorsal column. There are several treatable deficiency diseases that cause this. Some genetic, inflammatory, and paraneoplastic diseases are also responsible. Investigations should be done in a tiered, stepwise manner. Management is multidisciplinary. Treatment depends on the underlying disease. Supportive care, occupational and physiotherapy, and patient education are all important for management. With this, we end the episode. Please do keep watching the Steer channel for more such educative videos. Bye bye.
Don't miss the new case discussion series by the Steer team.